So welcome, Dada.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. I'm really happy to be with you, to talk to you.
And we're happy to have you. I will share with you what I share with all my guests, which is that, what is the through line of your life? I kind of gave you a standard introduction, but if you were to just pause in this moment and take a deep breath and reflect on that, the through line of my life is, and and tell us an origin story if you have one, and some wake up calls that led you to where you are and where you're going.
Okay. So the through line of my life, I guess, has been searching for a deeper meaning in my life, and that started in my early 20s when I was in university, and then I dropped out. And as soon as I dropped out, I had a great feeling um, of liberation. It felt like liberation. It felt like I was liberated. It felt like I was free to really do what I really wanted to do. I had felt stifled and suppressed at university with all the academic stuff. I'm not an academic at heart. So when I dropped out, I felt really liberated. And I started on I embarked on
Let me
a spirit.
let me ask you, why did you go to university? That was there some overriding? I should go. I should be responsible. I'm not
Yes,
connected to it, but I should do
yes.
it. And then over time, you said, "This is I'm not connected to this at all."
Exactly, exactly. That's what it was. It was, because I, I didn't have the wherewithal to really think for myself properly at the time. I don't. Looking back on it, I find it incredible that I couldn't just sit down for 5 or 10 minutes and say to myself, "Well, is this really what you want to do?" Why couldn't I do that at that age? I guess because you're relatively brain dead when you're a teenager in many respects, and you you don't really think properly. So that's exactly what it was, that I had been conditioned by the society in which we grew up in to think that, oh, I've got to have a good a profession, and if I have a good profession, I'll have a head start, and I'll be able to get on in life and really be happy. But then I realized that that wasn't the case. And if I didn't drop out, I'd be doing something that I wasn't really into for the rest of my life, and that's not what I wanted to do. Life is more important. Life is valuable. I wouldn't want to waste it doing something that I don't want to do.
And, and
So
and how did you communicate this to? Was there a conversation with your family or people saying, "I'm dropping out, I'm leaving"?
I, well, it was pretty much one-sided. I just decided, and then I told them, and they were, they were obviously not too happy about it. But then eventually, finally, over time, they got on board, and so I think it was better. In retrospect, I think it was best for everyone, myself and any prospective future patients that I might have had had I not dropped out. I think it was better for everyone that I did, because I wouldn't have been good at it. Of course, you're good at something that you're into. If you like doing something, or you're really interested in it, then you'll get good at it. But I wouldn't have done that, I don't think. So I think it was the best for everyone that I dropped out. And then I embarked on and as I said, I realized that these things that we're told will give us happiness, which are things like material possessions and worldly success. That might be a good family, a good job, um, um, what, whatever it might be in the worldly sphere in terms of in terms of worldly recognition, material possessions, physical and psychic satisfaction. These things don't ultimately give you what you're really looking for within yourself. So I realized that, and then I dropped out, and then I embarked on a search for what really would give me satisfaction in my life and really would be fulfilling to the maximum degree. And that search took the form of reading a lot about. Of course, those were the days before the internet. There was, apart from radio and TV, and VHS movies at the time, and things like that, you couldn't really find too much. Oh, and reading, I suppose, going to the library, but you couldn't really find out that much about things compared to the extent that you can these days. So I was reading a lot of books about spirituality, and then eventually meditation, and I developed a very strong desire to have my own meditation practice, my own guru, and at that time I was living kind of on the outskirts, in a rural area which was very close to a city. So I would go into the city once a week, and on a particular day, I said to myself, okay, I've done enough reading. I don't want to do I don't want any more theoretical knowledge. I want to do something practical. I want a practical path. I want a spiritual path. The next day I went into the city on my weekly trip, and everywhere I looked, the whole place was plastered with, because of course in those days, you used to see posters everywhere. People would paste posters to walls and lampposts and everything. So everywhere I looked, there were these posters, learn meditation, and there was a name like mine, a long Sanskrit name under it, and it said that it was going to be in the local library that evening. So okay, I thought I'll go, and that was it. I found my path, just like that, and haven't looked back since.
Well, I want to share something and see if how it lands for you, and if it does, how you'll reflect on it. Um, and this is how the podcasts go, because you will trigger certain memories and responses. I had a guest on named Chip Conley. Chip Conley's fairly well known in the entrepreneurial sphere. Uh, he owned a chain of hotels called Joie de Vivre Hotels. He sold them. He went to Airbnb, and what happened is uh, he realized he was addicted to achievement, and he reached a point where he had financial success, but 5 of his friends died by suicide. He was depressed and suicidal, and he realized that this achievement was not taking away the pain that he felt inside. And he formed something called the Modern Elder Academy, which I think you would be a wonderful resource for people probably 45 or 50 and older who just are searching. And in our conversation, I said, it may be that you have something that we call the syndrome of disavowed yearning, and that you yearn to feel complete, maybe complete the way you were in the womb, maybe complete with the universe, but because wasn't much support for it, and you couldn't do it on your own, you disavowed needing it. You convinced yourself, I don't need that, I'll just achieve. And that went pretty well for 50 years until it didn't go so well. And I'm just sharing it with you because I'm putting myself in your shoes, and I'm seeing and I'm visiting town once a week, and I'm seeing all this busyness and activity that doesn't seem particularly meaningful. And it's almost like a part of you disavowed all the expectations that were put on you, because you had this belief that something would reveal itself to you, because
Right.
the more that you saw other people's expectations or what you should do, or this will make you happy, something inside you say, I don't think so. I don't think that's a path for me. And
Exactly.
you disavowed it,
I
and
disavowed it. Exactly.
you disallowed it, and you had the faith that something would reveal itself to you, and then you found what revealed itself to you. So does that make any sense to you?
In perfect sense. You're very insightful. That's exactly what happened. Subconsciously, I knew that there was something waiting for me,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, and that all the stuff that I had been promised by society to make me happy, to fulfill me, wasn't going to cut it in the end. I knew that. I knew that internally, and so, as you say, I disavowed it. I disallowed it, and I went on my own personal search, and that search brought me to what I really needed to find fulfillment in my life.
Did you feel any loneliness or emptiness or pain, or was this more of a intellectual search and an intellectual realization that going down the other paths wasn't doing it for you? Was there a felt pain that you were trying to alleviate by this search, or was it much more of an intellectual endeavor?
No, it was it was neither. It was a search. It was a search of the heart. I
Mm.
was. It wasn't an intellectual endeavor. It was a heartfelt endeavor. It was more. You know, it wasn't my head telling me to do anything. It was my heart. I was following my heart, not my head. Yeah. If I had followed my head, the intellect, then I probably would have. Well, I don't know what my intellect. I can't remember what my intellect was telling me at the time, but probably something like, just continue what you're doing. You might not land on your feet. But my heart told me that I would land on my feet, and not only land on my feet, but really find what the path that I was looking for. So I wasn't I wasn't really the only pain that I was in at the time was not having my path. It was just I was just dissatisfied with them. I remember my I'd been going to parties throughout my teenage years and then early 20s and things. And I remember my friends were going to a party. It was one particular night. My friends were going to a party. And I thought to myself, I don't want to go to another party. I just don't want to do it anymore. Because every time I go to a party, it's the same kind of thing. It's okay. It's been fun, but how many times do you want to just go over the same old thing, even if it is fun? it's not it's not getting me anywhere. I'm just going round and round in circles. So I remember very distinctly thinking to myself, no, I don't want to go to another party. I want to do something meaningful with my life. And that's where I really diverged from what my friends were doing at the time and went on my own search. So, as I say, the only pain that I was feeling was the dissatisfaction that I hadn't found my path, and so there was a drive. There was an inner drive, and that inner drive was not intellectually driven. No, it was heart driven. It was a heartfelt search, and when I found the path, I had never been happier in my life because I felt that I had really found not not the ultimate state of being that I'm still moving towards. I know I'm getting closer and closer and closer, but I found the path that would take me there. And intuitionally, internally, I knew that is the path for me.
Well, it's
So
yeah, yeah, I want to apologize because sometimes I'm reasonably intuitive, occasionally empathic, and I was projecting that And because I deal with depressed people, suicidal people, there's always there would be a heartache. But what you're saying is, I didn't feel any heartache. I just felt an absence of clarity internally. And when I discovered this path, the clarity became clearer and it drew me on it. And I've never looked backwards, and I've never been happier or freer. And
Right.
I'm still on that path, and it still draws me to it. So it really feels like a heartfelt journey, as opposed
Exactly.
as so continue and talk to us about that.
So again, you summed that up perfectly. That's perfect. Yes, exactly. I never felt heartache. It was more of a heart pull. It was my heart was pulling me in a certain direction. And as you just summarized there, I still feel that I'm on the I'm going in the direction that my heart is pulling me, and I haven't gotten to the goal. I haven't reached the goal yet, but certainly I still feel that I'm moving towards it. And the more I move towards it, the more I travel on this path, the more I feel that 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 original decision was the right decision, and as I said, I've never looked back ever since. This is, I really landed on my feet and started walking the path, and I'm still walking it to this day. Um, a lot closer to where I want to get, but still a lot of work to do, because this path, in yoga we say this is the greatest attainment that one can achieve in life. Not attaining anything externally, uh, building a kingdom or gaining fame and fortune or what have you, but gaining the internal peace and fulfillment that I think we're all looking for. That's really the greatest task that one can take on in one's life. And because it's the greatest task, it takes a lot of time. It's a lifetime's work. In fact, we say in yoga that it's the purpose of our lives. We're only alive because of that one primary purpose. Of course, we have many secondary purposes, and um, those we can say are what society tells us will make us happy. If we have if, to look after ourselves, to look after our health, try to be healthy, try to be happy, have a good family, have a good job, have good friends, live in a nice community, try to make the world a better place. All these things are purposes that we have in our lives that will contribute to our own well-being and happiness, and to the well-being and happiness of others as well, the others around us that we have that we're connected to. But ultimately, in yoga, we say that we only have one primary purpose, and that primary purpose is to attain a feeling of oneness, to connect more and more and more with one's inner feeling of being, one's inner feeling of existence, and to ultimately attain oneness with that innermost feeling of self, the deepest feeling of self, which we say is the cosmic self, the universal self, the infinite within us and all around us. So according to the philosophy of yoga, this entire universe is existing within a higher self, a higher sense of being, a higher consciousness, one's own sense of being, of existence, is part of the greater sense of being, the greater consciousness, the greater existence. I always use this analogy, I'll use it again now. Just like a wave is one with the sea, not only part of the sea, a wave is one with the sea. So just as a wave is one with it, it has its own individual identity. but at the same time, it has the greater identity of the sea. So, in the same way, we all have our own personalities and our own individual identities and existences, but at the same time, our individual consciousness, our individual sense of being, is one with the greater being, the infinite consciousness of the universe.
I just
So,
I just heard something that, and I want to share it with you, because you said I've intuited correctly before. Um, what I heard is 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 that the universe is calling out to you to be at one with it, and the way to be at one with it is to be at one with yourself. And if you can truly be at one with yourself in a particular way, you and the universe will become as one. And this may even contribute to something that you hinted at in that prior talk about having several lives, that we're not just one life, we're not singular, and that it feels to you as if this has been your life's calling, that you, and it's not like the universe is demanding. It beckons, but it's not demanding. It beckons and
right.
says, you be at one with us, and do that by tuning into what your truest self is. But when you realize what your truest self is, you will have felt from your heart that you're at one with us, the universe. And then as you do that, please share that with other people, because as you look, as the universe and you look around, there's all kind of war, misery, just unnecessary, strife, not unlike the way it looked to you when you were looking at medical school, when you realized you had to get out. But does that resonate at all with you, that
Absolutely. You're exactly right.
oh,
Uh, and you touched on another important point, that part of the path is trying to help others as well. So it's not only a realization of oneself as the greater self, but an ever increasing, a growing realization also of everyone else as one's own self. The more one expands one's sense of self, the more one embraces the self of all beings, as also as one with the cosmic being. So, absolutely, what you said was entirely correct. Well, as far as I mean, it resonated completely. The only thing I would change is not the universe, not the universe, but more than the universe.
mm,
It's not like the universe, because the universe is tangible.
it's the
Um,
cosmos instead.
the cosmos, well, the universe exists within the cosmos, is the kind of like the physical and psychic manifestation of the cosmos, the cosmic mind, the cosmic consciousness. So I like to think more in terms of the cosmic consciousness beckoning, not the universe itself, because the universe is bound up in this whole, what we say, the cosmic drama. The universe is the cosmic drama. The drama itself cannot beckon you. The awareness, the intention, the consciousness, um, which the director of the drama can beckon you, not the drama itself. So it's the director it's the higher consciousness, the higher self, the cosmic being, the higher being, one's higher self that's beckoning. And of course, uh, there there is an indirect relationship to the higher self of the universe through others and through one's interaction with different people and events and things that happen in one's life, according to one's own situation and place in the universe. But there's also a direct connection with that higher self through your own sense of being. So, what you alluded to, and quite correctly, was that there is, first of all, the internal search, uh, through one's own sense of being, connecting more and more to one's innermost sense of being, expanding one's sense of being out into a more and more expanded feeling of being, and ultimately an infinite feeling of being. And then there is the connection with that infinite being, with that infinite sense of being, through others as well. So, as you said, helping others, service to others is a big part of the spiritual path. So, there are these two pillars: self realization, the internal search, and service to others, the external expression of that internal search. The more you feel connected to your higher self internally, the more you will also feel that you are connected to each and every being in the universe externally, because you're realizing more and more that the external is also part of the external is the internal, and the internal is the external. We are all existing within the same oneness, and ultimately our own feeling of oneness is the same. Each and every being, each and every person, each and every animal, plant, deep within themselves ultimately has that same feeling of existence, that same feeling of oneness. So the goal is the same for each and every one, regardless of one's upbringing, regardless of one's conditioning, one's race, one's gender, one's culture, what the religion with which one was brought up with. All these things are relative factors, but the absolute factor is that feeling of being within each and every one. And that is the same feeling of being. That's the higher being of the universe.
There's someone I may introduce you to. I did a podcast with her. Her name's Pauline Victoria. And she was born without arms or legs. And she has a child. She gave birth to a child. She has a husband. And she talked about at age 15, hitting a low point, maybe kind of like your medical school thing. And it was really a low point. Like, why did this happen to me? And we talked about her going through the stages of accepting this happened to me, wishing it to not be so isn't going to help. And then she owned it. Yes, this is me. No arms, no legs. And then
Right.
she surrendered to it. And as soon as she surrendered to it, she was free.
Right. Absolutely. Because
And
that's not her. No arms and no legs is not her. That's just
exactly,
the body. Right.
so, but with your permission, I may make an introduction because I think,
Oh, please do so. There's a guy in Australia, similar, in similar circumstance. He was born with no arms and no legs. He's got a little appendage of some sort, and that's what he uses to write with and things like that. But he went through a similar, his journey was a similar kind of trajectory, and now he speaks to school kids all around Australia, about accepting who you are.
well, you'll need to introduce me because she's in Australia as well.
Oh, is she really? Okay. Well,
So,
I'm
uh,
surprised I haven't heard of her. I've heard of him, but I haven't heard of her.
well,
But now, yeah,
I, I was determined. And one of the things we talked about, which still just grabs me emotionally, she said, one of the other reasons I was born is to show people that they have kindness and patience, because when I go to the market, I, I'm seated inside the carriage, and I sometimes have to say to the rushed person or rushed cashier, "Can you open my wallet and take out the credit card and pay?"
Mm.
And when she does that, she's giving them a gift of realizing they have kindness and patience in them that they didn't know they had.
Right, and uh, and she's also getting a lot of connection with people, presumably that she wouldn't otherwise have gotten in a normal situation, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, we'll make that happen. Maybe we'll even have we don't have to record it, but maybe the four of us will meet online, because I just have a very good
Yeah,
feeling about that. Yeah.
great.
Yeah. So say more about your path and the hard work ahead, and what is that like? What is the uh I wouldn't say it's unfinished, because you don't seem to be in conflict with where you are, and you accept it, and you're on this path, and you'll continue on this path, and it may be that your conscious physical self might die, but your conscious path will continue. But can you say more about the work ahead for you?
Well, uh, you know, the predominant feeling that I have is that I am not trying to attain anything that I don't already have. And I think that's why I feel um, I don't feel I don't feel
Driven.
unfinished
Yeah.
in any way, even though I still have to attain that realization of my true self. I know it's there, and it's waiting. It's always there, and it's waiting for me to realize it. So there's no sense of um, anxiety in attaining something that might not be there when you get to it. Uh, I would describe it as what what the deepest process that anyone can undergo, I believe, is remembering who they are. So it's not like we have to ultimately attain anything that we don't already have. It's just a question of remembering who we already are. And so it's inevitable. Uh, there is no question about one's final state of being, one's final state of existence, as being the blissful, infinite existence of the universe. It's just a matter of time and effort in order to get there. And that time and effort, of course, is the time and effort that it will take to uh, to every day take time out from the rest of the world, look within yourself, and deepen one's connection to self, deepen one's feeling of oneself as one with the infinite self. So that's the real work. Other than that, there's no work at all. The work is just to because we're not used to it. We're not used to sitting down and closing our eyes and looking within ourselves. So the only work, and I remember from the very first time I started meditation, I felt that that's what the work was. It wasn't in reading books or writing anything or trying to attain, as I said before, anything that is not already there. It's just a matter of practicing that introspection, that internal awareness, that inwards looking. That's where the work lies. And the more you do that, everything else just follows automatically. So it's not like any worldly endeavor. For a worldly endeavor, it's you are a separate entity that is interacting with the world, interacting with the people and things of the world. So there's no inevitability that you will attain what you're trying to attain, because there's so many variables that are going to determine whether you get there or not. We all know very well that we may or may not be successful in what we do in the world. it's Even despite our best efforts, something may be thrown into the works, spanner may be thrown into the works, and it doesn't happen. But the internal search is not like that at all. The internal search is it's an inevitability, and it's an inevitability that we will all, and I'm more and more convinced about this. The more I go, the deeper I go into it, that it's inevitable that we will all attain the fulfillment, the happiness, the contentment and the fulfillment, the deepest happiness and love and fulfillment that we are all looking for. And I think that gives a great peace of mind, and it really. And so, even though you're not there yet, even though I still feel that there's a lot of work to do, I still have peace of mind. I still have content. Of course, I don't have the ultimate contentment that I'm ultimately looking for, but I still have peace of mind and contentment, because I know that I'm on the path, and the path is taking me to where I want to go, and it's inevitable that I will eventually get there. And as I said before, not only that, it's not like, okay, in a way you can describe it as a path and you're going from here to there, but it's not like that at all. All you're doing is you are just uncovering, you're taking away, you're removing all you're removing the covering from who you really are. You're remembering who you are. And that's the work, that's the path, and that's the journey.
Here's an exercise that I sometimes share with people, and if you like it, you're welcome to use it. Uh, I'll ask people, and I'm sharing it with you because I now have a new name for the exercise, and I'm going to, from this time forward, I'm going to call it the ReDash membering yourself.
Right.
And the exercise is, imagine that your personality is a circle. And in that circle are the parts of your personality that are trying to prove, show, hide, please, or grab. Prove, show, hide, please, or grab. And if you can intentionally eliminate all those, what's left? And many people will say nothing. And if you say, but if you can lean into it, if you can intentionally allow yourself to let go of those, maybe in a meditation, maybe on a long walk on the beach, you may discover something that's been calling out to you. And I hadn't had a name for it, but maybe what's calling out is not just your remembered self, but your remembered self. And if you eliminate all those things that take you away from it, you may discover that what's left is not nothing. It's your remembered self.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great exercise.
Yeah.
It's like when you look at the new moon. Well, you don't see the new moon, but it's there, and eventually you see it as the full moon. Sometimes I use the analogy of, where our being is surrounded by a thought cloud. So there's millions of thoughts orbiting around our true sense of being. And if we can, as you say, with your exercise, take away those things that are trying to, all the different thoughts and feelings that are trying to grab our attention and our sense of being, if we can take those all away, then we can uh, um, we have we can see our being. It's like, you know if there is a lake, and the lake, the surface of the lake is rough, so that it's like those are all the different things. The waves on the lake are the different things in our lives that are taking us away from our true sense of being. But if we can calm down the surface of the lake and eventually get that surface to a completely calm surface, then we can look down into the depths of, we're able to look down and see the depths of our being. Another analogy that just came to mind, a mirror. If a mirror is covered with dust, you cannot see yourself. The more you clean the dust from the surface of the mirror, the more you can see your true self. Yeah.
Yeah, you just triggered it. We're sharing analogies. You just triggered another analogy.
I love analogies. They're great because they're a really good way of understanding the process, or something which can be not so tangible, but you can make it tangible through these analogies. Yeah.
So here's another analogy that we can get playful with. You could, and again, you speak in front of millions, and I'm at the sort of the tail end of my life, so I'm not doing any speaking. But the analogy would be, uh, you would say to the audience, "How many of you think that what I'm wearing is the color orange?" They raise their hand. You could say, "What I'm wearing is not the color orange. Orange is the color that is reflected off the essence of what I'm wearing. The essence of what I'm wearing is not orange. It's probably spectrally the opposite of it. It's just like when we see the moon, we think it's yellow or white. The moon is
Mm.
basically dark. It's pitch black. It's just reflected the light on us. What we're seeing is what it's getting rid of. And
Right.
when we look at the black sky is actually incredibly light and bright. It's just
Mm.
reflecting the blackness to us. So we call it black. And all
Right.
the stars in the sky are not white. They are all pitch black, but they are reflecting light to us. and
Right.
and this is so much uh, uh, how the universe is, and it probably is a lot of times, like one of the things that I'm teaching the world. I spoke in Moscow to 1,000 Russians, and I have a book on listening, and my latest work on listening is and there's a video clip, and I say, underneath you listening to me for information, all of you are listening for something.
Mm.
And you're not, what's happened is you're distracted by listening to me, and you might even write down some bullet points. Most of them won't work, and you'll say it'll work for him. He's an expert. He's an American psychologist type. I said, but underneath you listening to me, you're all listening for something.
Mm.
And if I can tune in to what you're listening for underneath what you're listening to me, I said, if I focus on you listening to me and I deliver bullet points, we'll have a very nice transactional conversation. If I throw in a few stories, you'll give me your mind for an hour, and then we'll get out of here. And then I changed my voice to a sort of a NPR FM voice. And I said, but if instead of focusing on what you're listening to and giving you bullets that probably won't be that helpful, if I focused on what you were listening for, and
Mm.
if I can just be curious about what you're listening for, I don't even have to get it right. But if I can just be curious about what you're listening for with the purpose of serving what you're listening for, and if I get what you're listening for correctly and I serve it, you won't just give me your mind, you'll give me everything.
Mm. Absolutely.
So this has been, thank you for this conversation, Dada. It's been really
Oh, likewise.
enjoyable.
I'm really. Another thing, just related to the analogy of the color black that you were talking about before. That what you just said now relates to that also, because when you look at the color black, you think, oh, there's no color there. But actually, the color black is all colors, and all those colors exist within the mystery of the color black. So rather than just listening to someone's words or what you're expecting to hear from those words, try to look deeper into what you, what you're not seeing. So yeah, let's try and find the mystery in the color black. Well, the spiritual path is like that. It's a mysticism. My guru used to say that mysticism is the effort, the never-ending effort to find a connection between the known and the unknown. And that's another way, I suppose, of describing the spiritual path. That what we're, what we're ultimately looking for is not in our heads. It's not an intellectual process. It's not part of our thought processes. It's beyond that. And until we start to realize what's beyond, what's deeper, what's in that color, what's in the color black, we don't know what it is. It's a mystery. So I think it's important to, in whichever way one is doing it, probe the mystery of the unknown, the mystery of one's own being, and the mystery, and automatically the mystery of the being of the universe will continue to reveal itself to us.
Now there is I'm probably getting the creator's name wrong. Thicknick, yeah, who died recently.
Thich Nhat,
Thich
yeah,
Nhat.
Thich Nhat Hanh, Thich Nhat something. Yeah, I know he died recently. The Buddhist monk. Yeah.
And I think this is attributed to him, but I'm really drawn to the concept of interbeing.
Right.
And when you're truly selflessly compassionate with another person, uh, and not in a pitying way, but when you're compassionate, when you feel their pain and create the space for it, the interbeing goes up. And when you're critical and sarcastic, the interbeing goes down. And
Right.
and the interbeing is more important than either of the beings. It's
That absolutely. That's another way of saying the same thing. Thich Nhat Hanh. Thich Nhat Hanh was his name.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A great guy. Yeah. He's. You know, regardless of the path. Well, essentially, I mean, all the paths are the same, but regardless of the tradition that one follows. I mean, I practice yoga and meditation. Well, I guess but he was doing the Buddhist style. I'm doing the tantric style, the yoga style. But essentially, it's the same truths. Even within Christian mysticism and things like that, it's the same truth that we're getting at, and ultimately, it's the same. It's I mean, the process of meditation will ultimately be the same because it's the process of introspection. So there may be different techniques that people will use, but ultimately the process is the same. And the ways of expressing what one experiences will be different as well. But the experience itself that one is trying to express is the same.
Absolutely. Uh, a colleague of mine is a fellow named Marshall Goldsmith. He's a big executive coach, uh, and he has a new book out called The Earned Life, and he describes himself as a philosophical Buddhist. And the purpose of the earned life is to find a way to let go of regret. And part of what he talks about in the book is regret is attached to a self that no longer exists. So
Right.
you're attaching to a person that you were 5 minutes ago. You could have regretted saying what you did 5 minutes ago, but that person is no longer here. And so the
Yeah.
key is to recognize that, and rather than beating up on yourself for something that's no longer here, try to be present with what is here, and try to be present with whoever you're with. And
Absolutely.
yeah, anyway.
That's a great way of putting it. That really speaking, who you were even 5 minutes ago is is um, is just as different a person as anybody else that you might see in the street.
Mhm.
Well, maybe not just as different, but we're, we're still. It means that we're not the same. Who we really are is not the same as who we were 5 minutes ago, or even more so 5 years ago.
or
We're
or 5 minutes from now. So if you
five
screwed
minutes
up
from
five
now.
minutes ago and you're apologizing 5 minutes from now for it, you're missing out on now.
Right. So there's really no point in holding any of these emotions like regret or what's the other one I was
Regret,
uh,
shame, guilt.
shame or guilt or anything like that. There's no point in it
Yeah.
because that's not who we are.
Mhm.
Uh, we're moving we're perpetually moving on, and the best thing to do is uh, is is to move is to get into the feeling, get into the flow of being who you are in the present. Of course, Eckhart Tolle talks about this as well, and all the great mystics have talked about this. Live in the present.
So Dada, I want to leave you with this thought. You've not only been wonderful, you still are.
Thanks. Great.
You still are. I don't want to screw up. I want to savor you being wonderful right now, and it just left.
well, well, we all are wonderful whenever we are.
And
We-
when we're full of wonder.
right.
There,
We're
there you
full of wonder, whoever and whenever we are.
there you go.
Right.
Anyway, so where can people find out more about you? Because they're going to beat a path to your door wherever your door is.
Well, I wish. Um, well, I mean, I'm not really worried about them coming to me. Worried, as long as they come to the truth, that's the main thing. But you know, I, I, I always tell people, this is not coming from me. My guru, who was a self-realized master, he basically what I'm talking about is what he taught. So, I don't. None of the credit goes to me, of course. But you can find out about the path that I teach and the teachings of my guru by either going to my website, Conscious Frontier one word.org, or and also linked to from my website is the anandamarga.org website. I'm an acharya meditation teacher of Anandamarga, so ANANDAMARGA.org. For example, on that website, there's a learn meditation button that you can press, and you can get a brief introduction into the process of meditation. And then you can also contact me directly. I've got my Facebook page and everything on my website, or if you just Google Gunamuktananda, or if you can't remember that, then TEDx or TEDx Dada. You can come to my TEDx talk, and then you'll also get my other things in that Google search. And you could tell me, for example, where you live, and I could refer you to a meditation teacher that I would recommend in your area. So, we could get you on the path like that. Yeah, if you're interested.
That'd be wonderful. Well, thank you. You're still wonderful. You haven't lost it. You haven't lost that flair of wonderfulia. But but thank you. And to our listeners, thank you for listening in.